What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Dominate Every Aspect. And in this week's video, I wanted to talk about the pros and cons of working with a coach and also the pros and cons of prepping yourself. Now, as many of you know, you might be thinking, why is Brandon going to talk about the pros and cons of working with a coach? Isn't he just going to talk about all the pros? Obviously, he wants to get people to work with him. Well, there are definitely some cons, but I want to go over everything. And as you guys know, I am currently prepping myself, and I'll continue to prep myself for the remainder of my career. But I'll get into that in a little bit, so stick with me. I did write a few things down here just because I didn't want to miss anything. So please forgive me for actually looking at my notes. I know in all my other videos, I just like to kind of ramble a little bit. But this one, I wanted to talk about some key points that I didn't want to forget. So first and foremost, let's talk about the pros of working with a coach. Obviously, that's one of the things that I try to preach as a coach is the things that can help us out. So number one, and this is the biggest one that I've seen, is definitely accountability, right? So that's someone that you have to check in, twice a week, once a week, day after day. Accountability is huge just to keep people on track. Another set of eyes is another great benefit to working with a coach. I work with pro bodybuilders, pro bikini athletes, lots of pro figure athletes, and they know what they're doing for the most part, right? But they do need that second set of eyes to help them get to stage at their absolute best. And as we know, when we get to the later stages of contest prep, it's kind of tough for us to evaluate ourselves. So having another set of eyes is always a good thing to do. Also, just having somebody else there to support you, having a support system in play, like I do at Team Iron Management. So although not everybody necessarily competes every single year, we have the team to support you along with your journey. And then of course, there's a lot less stress when you do work with a coach because they're making the tough decisions for you. You don't constantly have to think, well, what am I doing next? And the last one, obviously, it's a big pro. You end up learning a lot from a coach. So that's one thing, everyone's a little bit different, and you could also get a new take on some new strategies to implement. Now let's talk about the cons. One big con that jumps out to me, and it's kind of a shame, is you really don't ever know what you're going to get when you hire a coach. Now obviously I hope a lot of you guys do your research before you just hire some random person off of Facebook or Instagram. And hopefully you guys by now know me a little bit more. If you feel comfortable working with me, that's great. If you want to work with somebody else, that's okay too. But do your research first because people will tell you one thing, and then next thing you know, you're getting this whole different aspect that you didn't expect. Secondly is the cost. Some of these people have tremendously high prices, and you might think that cost might reflect like a great service, but that might not always be the case. So once again, that kind of goes in the background of doing your research. Look at these people's clients and see what they look like, and are they worth their costs? Some people yes, some people absolutely not. And then you might have trouble. A con would be you might have trouble trusting someone else. Let's say if you've only prepped yourself before and you have a hard time listening to somebody in authority, and you don't necessarily want to do that. That, and also along with that, the commitment. So obviously, you have to sign up for so many months at a time, or your package is a certain length. That's a long commitment, and some people just can't handle being tied down in a relationship for that long. I'm not talking about like boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. I'm talking about coach-client relationship. So those are the pros and the cons with working with a coach. And let's talk about prepping yourself now. So as I mentioned earlier in this video, I'm definitely prepping myself. I'm the one that's making all my changes to my diet, my training, and I'm trying to reflect that with you guys in these videos and helping you dominate every aspect of your own contest prep if you happen to be prepping yourself, and if you're not, hopefully you might be using some of these strategies as well in your own contest prep. So let's talk about the pros of prepping yourself. I just finished talking about cost, so obviously when you're prepping yourself, it's free, right? And that's great. So it's no cost to you. Another one is it can be a huge learning experience. And although I did mention learning experience with working with a coach, it's just as much, if not more of a learning experience, working with yourself, right? Because you have to learn first by learning what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Another thing is that you have a really good sense of pride and accomplishment when you do finish your contest prep, because you're like, man, I was the only person that put in the work, that came out with the plan, and that executed the plan, and these are my results and my results alone. So that's kind of cool to say that you did it all on your own. But let's talk about some of the cons now. So I just said, and this could be viewed as different ways. Some of the cons, I just said, you have a sense of pride and accomplishment, but with that is a solo mission, right? So you're a one-man, one-woman wrecking crew, right? You're the one that has to make all the tough decisions. You're the one that has to come up with the workout plans, and you have to evaluate yourself as you go along. So it's kind of tough to do that on your own, especially if you don't have a lot of experience. And there's also another aspect is there's no one there to hold you accountable. So as some of you guys might have seen in my recent Instagram post, like I just went out to a restaurant for Thomas Schnepp's birthday over the weekend, and I had to hold myself accountable. I could have gone crazy at that restaurant, and I didn't have to answer to anyone. And my wife wouldn't say anything, Thomas and Julie wouldn't have said anything. It's only me, so I have enough self-control to say that, okay, I'm only going to eat this certain amount of food. And that's what a coach is there for, is to have yourself accountable. But if you're your own coach, you have to hold yourself to a very high standard as well. And then it's obviously a little bit more stressful when we get down into contest prep, and you have to make those tough decisions. Do I cut more food? Do I add more food? Do I take away cardio? Do I add in more cardio? And then evaluate how you're looking. Sometimes it's hard to be in the right state of mind in order to evaluate yourself properly when you're dieting for a competition. And then last but not least, you just question your own moves. And it's kind of nice to have somebody make these decisions for you. But as I've been weighing myself daily here, and as my competition prep goes on, that's one thing that I'm going to try not to do is question the moves that I make. If I see my weight go up one day, if I see my weight drop too much one day, I can't be in the back of my head, well, did I make the right decision? I just have to stick with my own decisions. So guys, that's like the pros and the cons of training yourself or working with a coach. Now, obviously, I'm a coach, but I hope that kind of puts into perspective a little bit better, what you actually will get if you do work with a coach, or, what happens when you train yourself. So as always, guys, keep dominating every aspect, and I'll see you all next week.